everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Helena Kosinski. I am here to talk to you about numbers, data, stats, insights. I've got plenty of good stuff for you. So, I'm the VP of Global for Luminate, and on the right-hand side here, I'm going to walk through who Luminate is, how big music streaming is in Asia, and the growth that we're seeing, language trends, which is a really interesting one, and specifically the growth in Japanese music outside of Japan. And then we're going to run through a little case study as well. So, firstly, please indulge me. For those of you who don't know, Luminate is the global leader in independent insights in the music industry. We cover music consumption, streaming, sales. We also have a large consumer insights division where we do lots of research about music fans, super fans, how people are engaging with music all around the world. And we are very global. So we have data for North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Middle East, everywhere. All of these markets, in fact. So I'll leave this here so you can have a look, see if your country's on there. And then in terms of what we do for the music industry, we answer lots of questions for them. So how am I doing compared with my competitor? How is my song performing? How is my artist performing? How is it traveling around the world? How are artists not on my label or not with my publishing company? How are they doing? I'm looking to purchase a music catalog. How do I value that? What are the streaming volumes looking like? Lots of different questions. Who's my audience? Who are the super fans for my group? Who are the fans of my genre? Who's listening to J-pop outside of Japan? All of those sorts of questions we can help answer. And then how do I tell my artist story, or how do I tell my brand story when it comes to music? How do people who are engaging in purchasing a new car, what are they most likely to listen to? All of those connections between what's happening in music and what's happening in the rest of people's lives. We help answer all those questions. So today, I'm going to share a bunch of data and stats with you. Country-level consumption data that's coming from all of the key Asian markets that we have. So Japan, Korea, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, and India. And then also consumer research that we've done in the majority of those markets around the region. And then in terms of the data and where we get it from, those data providers whose logos you can see on the bottom of the screen, they're all providing data to us on a daily basis for all of the streaming that's happening on their platform. So, let's dig into the numbers. How big is music streaming across Asia? Well, first, I'm going to set the scene with how big is music streaming globally. So the orange bar there is 2022, the first half of 2022, and the green bar is the first half of 2023. And you can see in terms of total on-demand song streams across all audio and all video platforms, the global music streaming market grew by almost 31% year on year. Keep that number in your mind. And then when we look at just audio song streaming, that's 23%. In Asia, looking at the same time period, the growth is 107.4% compared to 30% globally. So streaming in Asia is booming, up from 400 billion to 830 billion streams year on year. And here we have the top three markets, the top three growth markets. India with 131% year-on-year growth, Indonesia 112%, and interestingly Korea with 109% growth year-on-year in streaming. And where's that streaming coming from? Well, younger listeners in this region. So the survey research that we've done shows that in the Philippines, millennial Filipinos, so those aged between 27 and 42 now, 88% of those are streaming. In Singapore, 69%. And in Japan, Gen Z are the population, are the demographic, so that's 13 to 26-year-olds that are most likely to be streaming, and 68% of that age group in Japan are streaming music. So it's pervasive, it's the majority of people in markets. And here we have a slightly different mix. So the number one source of music discovery in each of those markets. So social media in the Philippines, video and audio streaming in Singapore, and in Japan, still television across the entire population. And I want to focus on Japan in this presentation a little more because I think it's a really interesting market. So, bear with me, this has a lot of numbers. What we have here is we've looked at the language of songs in the top 10,000 in each of these markets. And this is something that we considered and we wrote about in our mid-year report, which was released in July. And on a global level, the top 6 languages when it comes to the language of the song are English, Spanish, Hindi, Korean, Portuguese, and Japanese. And what's interesting on that global level is that we're seeing a decline in the English language in terms of the proportion it makes up of the whole. And because of the increase in streaming in India, we're seeing the biggest gainer from a language perspective being Hindi. When we look at Korea, the number one language of songs in Korea is Korean, but it's also the language that is declining year on year, and the biggest gainer there is Japanese. In Japan, the number one language is Japanese, and the biggest decline is coming from Korean language again. In Indonesia and in the Philippines, English language is the most popular when it comes to the language of songs. And in both of those markets, it's English that is declining and Japan and Japanese language songs that are increasing, which is a really interesting, and albeit a small increase, but it is an interesting trend that we're seeing, the increase in Japanese language songs outside of Japan. And we looked at some of the research data that we did to see if that backed it up, and yes, when we asked people, do you engage with songs from other countries, 95% of Filipinos did, 74% of Singaporeans did, and 57% of Japanese engage with music that's not from their home country. So, drilling down now a little into the Japanese music fan, and specifically that Gen Z music listener, who are the ones most likely to be streaming music. So 44% of them discover music on video audio streaming services, 66% consume music on video streaming platforms. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Much, much more likely than other Japanese social media users to be listening to music that friends have posted on streaming services. But the engaging with foreign content is the really interesting one, because usually in other countries, it's the Gen Z, it's the youngest population that are ones that are most open to music from overseas. But in Japan, that Gen Z population are much less likely to listen to music from artists from other countries. They're very happy with Japanese content. And here we have the top Japanese songs across all of Asia, and then in a couple of different countries around the region. And one of the songs that you'll see on each of these lists is the YOASOBI big hit, Aidoru. And this is a song that I am going to talk a little bit more about. So, for those of you not aware, this was the title song for a very big hit anime series that was released earlier this year. And that's very much helped drive its success around the world. And this song made it onto the Billboard global, excluding US charts. So it really has been quite a big hit. So first, this is the streaming in Japan. So the premiere of the show was in the first couple of weeks of April. And from that point onwards, you can see the very steep rise in terms of the volume of streaming in Japan of this song, and reaching a peak of 80 million streams in June. And then just before the end of May, there was an English version of this song released, which will come to play in a moment. So that was Japan. This is looking across the rest of Asia. And the beauty of what we can do is that we have the data for all of these countries, apples to apples comparison. And so we can see that the other two big markets for this song in Asia were Korea and Indonesia. And on the graph there, you can see Korea is the green line, Indonesia is the orange line, and then we've got Thailand, India, and Singapore as well. So growth and a continued growth in Korea and Indonesia for this song. And then we looked at the rest of the world. So not only was this a kind of pan-Asian hit song, but it also went pretty global. So outside of Asia, the top markets were the US, Mexico, Brazil, France, and Argentina. And then on the graph there, you can see those three colors represent Europe in orange, North America in yellow, and Latin America in green. So the song grew in popularity and it got streaming across all of these regions. And there you can see at the end of May, the English language version being released and an uptick in streaming again. And then another thing that we do with artists like this, especially when there's a song that becomes a big hit, is we look at the impact of that on the rest of the artist's catalogue. So we've seen that with Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill, which was obviously a song used in Stranger Things, led to a big resurgence in that song and in that artist. So what we've done here is the green with the 195% increase is shows the impact of the entire catalogue with Aidoru. And then the orange piece is the rest of YOASOBI's streaming catalogue without that one song. And what you can see is that for the rest of the catalogue, there was a 15.4% uplift in all of the other songs because people were then going to listen to other songs by the artist. And that 15.4% is actually a little bit lower than we would see with a number of other artists. So when we have a hit song from a catalogue, we usually see about 34% increase in the rest of the artist's catalogue. So slightly less in this instance. But anime is definitely the key. So going back to some of the research that we've done, anime is a key discovery driver of music across different markets. So 39% of millennial music listeners in Japan discover music from anime shows. 31% of Gen Z listeners in Indonesia, 22% of Gen Z listeners in Korea, and then interestingly, 18% of Gen Z listeners in the US are discovering music via anime. So it really is a global driver of music discovery. So just to finish things up, if you only remember 3 things from this presentation, they should be: 1, streaming is growing in Asia, growing much faster than other regions, and it's doubled year on year. And it's younger listeners who are driving that streaming growth in this region. Songs in the Japanese language are gaining streaming share, and English language as a whole across global streaming is dropping, being replaced by other languages. Spanish is huge as well. And then those entertainment partnerships, be it anime, be it gaming, be it other film and TV, syncs are really helping power songs and expose them to other different, more global audiences. There is, hopefully on each of your tables, a card with a QR code. You can look at this one, or you can scan this one, or you can scan the one on your table, and you can download this entire presentation. And if you want to know any more, I will be at the back of the room or in the lobby just outside to answer any questions. Thank you very much.